Hi, class. My name is Ashley Boothie, and the reading strategy that I am going to teach to you today is called Book in a Box. So, some of the items I'm going to cover are what it's all about, some benefits that can be reaped from this reading strategy, how to implement it in your classroom or in small groups, some of the key components of this reading strategy. I'm going to give you an example of what Book in a Box would look like in practice. And then I'm going to talk about some challenges that a teacher might face when using this reading strategy. So first, I'm going to talk about what Book in a Box is. You may have also heard it called book in a bag or book in a container. And it's a strategy that can be used before reading a text or as a way to introduce a book or introduce a unit to your class or your groups. So it involves the teacher choosing 5 to 7 concepts from the text. This could be character, this could be themes or central ideas, and then choosing objects to represent those concepts. The teacher presents the class with the objects and explains how they relate to the text without giving too much information away. So this can help foster some curiosity in the students and then also some excitement before reading the text, giving them a little bit of a preview without sharing too much of the information. Next, I'm going to go into some benefits about why Book in a Box is a good strategy for reading. First of all, it activates background knowledge before reading the text. A lot of times we come across books that some of our students will have no idea some of the themes or concepts that are inside the book, and this helps to kind of give them a little bit of background knowledge before diving in. It's also a great strategy for visual and kinesthetic learners as they're able to touch and feel the objects that the teacher has chosen and can actually see them in front of their faces. It's a great way to do some pre-teaching for some of our small groups, our special ed students, our lower readers, just to kind of give them that little boost before reading. It helps build excitement for the text or unit of study, like I mentioned before. And then we can also incorporate writing into the Book in a Box. After the teacher demonstrates and shows all of the objects, they can lead that into having the students writing predictions about the text after the teacher has explained. You may be wondering, as a teacher, how you would implement this into your classroom. The first step would be to decorate a box. As the teacher, you'll select a box that's large enough to contain all of your important items. Decorate the box with the title, the author information, maybe some drawings that are associated with the story. Then you're going to go collect your items. So based on the important concepts within the text, the teacher will collect items that represent different concepts such as theme, setting, characters, central message, main ideas, that again don't give away too much information about the text. When this is all put together, you then present the box to your students. This would be an opening lesson for a new book you're going to start reading or a new unit you're going to be introducing. So the teacher will then present the box to the class, and it's a great way to introduce a new text. It helps create background knowledge as well as spark interest. And then follow up. The teacher can also have the students create their own Book in a Box project to present to their peers, allowing them to become the experts on a text and present their concepts. So this could be done after you read a text and they could recreate their own to share, or you can have them become a master of their own smaller text or a picture book and create their own small Book in a Box to present to a peer. Next, we have the key components or the key parts of this reading strategy, and basically what it's going to do for our students. So it helps create that background knowledge. Teachers are able to pre-teach some concepts or trickier concepts that might come up within the text. You're kind of giving a concise summary of the text without giving away too many details. It helps to identify the central themes and ideas within the text and also aids in building that character analysis. So now I'm going to go ahead and share with you an example of how Book in a Box could be used. And I'm going to go by the book Charlotte's Web by E.B. White. a very well-known story. So some materials that a teacher might need would be a box, decorated or plain, with 5 to 8 symbolic items that represent parts of the story. So maybe you're going to use a toy pig that represents the character. Maybe you're going to use a small plastic spider or a web image. You could use a piece of yarn and explain that the yarn or the string is going to be an important part of the story. You might have a mini barn or a picture of a farm to represent the setting. There could be a feather or an egg to kind of represent some of the things that happen within Charlotte's Web. Maybe you'd have a piece of ribbon that you make and label it "some pig" and explain that those words are going to be, a really big deal in this story. Some of the standards that we'd be focusing on would be making predictions, activating prior knowledge, speaking and listening, and then also that evidence-based thinking. Now, once you have all of your materials gathered and everything set up, you would stand in front of the class before starting the story and you would work through each object in the box, holding up each one, asking the students what they wonder about it or what they think it might represent in this story. Then you'll introduce the book to the students and maybe ask them which object is most helpful to them. You can have them write down predictions about what they think might happen based on the objects in your explanation of the objects that go along with the Charlotte's Web. And then you would begin the book or the unit for them. The last thing I wanted to talk about in my presentation of Book in a Box are some challenges that you might face as a teacher. First of all, some students may have much less background knowledge of the story. So in the case of Charlotte's Web, they might not have a background of farm life and what that's like. So that could be some confusion to work through. With this strategy, there can be oftentimes uneven participation, as some kids naturally dictate discussions in the classroom. We always have our students who want to share, raise their hand, participate, and then those who are just kind of there along for the ride and listening. As a teacher, you could have difficulty finding enough materials. Now, I use a super easy example with Charlotte's Web, but you might have a harder time with, some more complex texts as we move into middle school and high school, finding those items to represent the concepts. And then lastly, time constraints. We all know that it's, teaching lessons. We got to get everything in. And this could potentially take up one whole lesson time, one whole day's worth of reading for each new text that's being introduced, because it is a process. You have to go through each of the concepts and you have a discussion about each of the concepts and each of the items in your bag. And that can potentially take up quite a bit of teaching time. And there you have it. That is the Book in a Box strategy. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope that you are able to implement this in your classroom next school year.